There is a cursed island deep in the heart of Maine that locals are terrified of. Hello everybody, Phil here, and welcome to the first episode on exploring North American folklore and urban legends on this channel. Today we are going to be covering a mysterious local legend of a cursed island just a few miles north of Bangor, Maine. And like most things that come to mind when thinking of Maine, you're going to want to stick around for the end, because some of these legends sound like they're straight out of a Stephen King book. Now before the video begins, if you're into urban legends, folklore, cryptids, or paranormal stories, that's pretty much all I talk about on here, so consider subscribing and smacking that like button to let me know if you enjoyed today's story. Aside from that, I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. Let's begin our journey to Orono. Orono is a sleepy college town a few miles north of Bangor, and it's also home to the present-day University of Maine. Like most of these colonial towns in New England, Orono's been around for a while. Orono was settled in 1774 after colonists teamed up with Chief Joseph Orono, leader of the Penobscot Nation, to help them fight the American Revolution. This land was inhabited by the indigenous tribe for thousands of years, but it wasn't until 1806 that the town was ever established on maps. In the 1800s, the lumber industry boomed, attracting thousands of people. With a growing population, the people of Orono began to construct mills on the 62-acre island right along the Penobscot River, the river that flows through its downtown. This island is called Ayer's Island, and it's named after Joshua Ayers, one of the original settlers of the land and the first one to start constructing these buildings on the island in 1774. The densely wooded island has been used for numerous ventures over the years, starting as a lumber mill and eventually turning into a textile mill. However, due to the lumber industry drying up and environmental pollution laws getting stricter, the island was eventually closed to the public in 1996. Today, it still holds abandoned buildings and the ruins of a once vital economic gold mine. The land is privately owned, and trespassers regularly get prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Trust me when I'm saying this, from what I've heard from locals in the area, the police do not mess around when it comes to trespassing on this island for safety reasons, private property reasons, and the list goes on. If you ever find yourself in this neck of the woods, just know accessing this site is illegal and will get you into trouble. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. Ayer's Island, according to the locals, is rumored to be cursed. Even the indigenous tribes of the Penobscot region, who inhabited this area for thousands of years, refused to settle on this island. They believed it to be cursed earth, and bad spirits lived in this area. You have to remember that working in lumber mills wasn't an exactly easy job. The job was extremely dangerous and injuries were common, working conditions were physically demanding, and hours were just long altogether. Because of the lumbermen fighting sleep deprivation, muscle fatigue, or just a lack of importance on safety, these work sites have claimed many lives over the course of their history. There are three dark urban legends surrounding Ayer's Island. The first one we're going to get into is the story of Wooden Lucy. Now, Wooden Lucy is not really a spirit you really want to ever encounter. There are a few variations of the story, some accounts describing her as a young blonde girl wandering the ruins and woods of the island, while some other stories claim that she takes the form of an old crone, kind of like those creatures when you come across in The Witcher 3 when you're out in the swamps. At the time of the lumber boom, many of the lumbermen on the island warned newcoming laborers of Wooden Lucy. One lumberman went on record stating to never stare into the woods, even if you think someone is watching you. It is rumored that if you ever catch Wooden Lucy's gaze, she will turn you to wood and kill you. It's kind of like Medusa in Greek mythology, as making eye contact with her can be fatal. This definitely scared many people off the island as paranoia grew. However, the encounters just kept coming. To this day, people passing the island sailing down the Penobscot River have reported seeing a small blonde girl walking through the abandoned mill ruins and disappearing into the trees. Others have reported seeing the same girl frolicking through the abandoned buildings of the once active logging mills. Is this Wooden Lucy, or is this something even darker? I don't think I'd honestly like to find out, since being turned to wood doesn't sound like a good way I'd like to spend my Saturday. The second story we're going to get into on Ayer's Island introduces us to John Tanner, a renowned mill foreman who worked at the paper mills during the island's industrial era. According to local folklore, Tanner died in a mysterious accident while supervising operations at the mill. Some claim to have witnessed the accident, claiming he was crushed by some heavy machinery that wasn't safely harnessed inside one of the buildings. To the people working nearby, they had heard a loud crash and a scream, only to find workers gathered around the collapsed 2-ton steel machine with John Tanner under it. The workers attempted to lift the machine off, and once they finally did, after multiple tries, John Tanner was pronounced dead on impact. Now, according to the local legend, John Tanner's spirit still lingers around these ruins of the mills to this day. Sightings of his spirit claim to see a grisly-looking man wandering the island, seeking revenge against his employers and their paper mill industry. Whether this is fact or fiction, this is one of the examples of how dangerous working in this environment was. The lumber industry was very unforgiving, and it just shows you how fast things could take a turn for the worse. So right off the bat, we have a guy that was crushed by a 2-ton machine, and his spirit haunts the island looking for revenge. And we also have a girl that could turn people to wood. So Ayer's Island, not off to a great start now, are we? But this next legend of Ayer's Island is probably the most tragic of the three. You see, like John Tanner, Samuel Hawthorne was a foreman at one of the mills on the island. He worked very long hours throughout the day, often waking up early when the sun rise to get ahead of his daily duties, and finishing his job when the night came. He had a daughter that he loved very much named Margaret, and they were very close. She loved her father and enjoyed spending as much time as she could with them, especially since he wasn't home a lot of the time throughout the week. He was working at the mills. So on the free time that she had, she would find out when his lunch break was, and she would bring him lunch, and they would discuss her studies, his work, and how mom was doing back at the house, still trying to find time for a father-daughter relationship. Margaret, like any lovable daughter, also enjoyed playing practical jokes on Samuel. You see, she was pretty young at the time, so she would sneak up behind him and scare him, and Samuel would jump a foot, and he would start chasing his daughter as she ran away giggling and running all the way back to the house sometimes. Which kind of leads into my next point. She would do this when he worked, which is not exactly safe, especially in a lumber mill. Many of the other workers knew Margaret by name since she frequently visited her father. Sometimes they would even encourage her, laughing alongside her as she played these pranks on him and would scare the daylights out of him. Keep in mind, safety laws weren't as strict as they are today. So it's understandable, like, why nobody back in the 19th century questioned what a young girl was doing wandering around a mill site with no safety equipment or protective gear. But it made Samuel happy, and that's kind of all that mattered at the moment. You know, as time went on, Samuel wasn't exactly having the best time working at the mill. The ghost stories of the surrounding area were starting to get to his head. He became very paranoid on the shifts. He thought he would see shadows late at night or hear footsteps creep up behind him when there was no one there. His co-workers didn't help either because they reported seeing stuff too. Needless to say, Samuel was on edge and not in the mood for any more scares or spend any more time at the mill than he needed to. Later that same day, his daughter was walking down to the mill with his lunch in hand, and upon entering the site, she spotted her father hammering something alone, and she decided it was a great time to play one of her practical jokes on him. She tiptoed across the cold ground, slowly approaching her father, and once she got close enough, she grabbed his sides and screamed. Samuel, in a very bad headspace and not even giving it a second thought, he swung the hammer that he had instinctively and struck his daughter in the head. Unfortunately, this blow killed her on impact, and to Samuel's horror, he turned around and he saw his daughter fall unconscious down onto the ground. Realizing what he just did, he shrieked for medical help, but by the time any doctors came, she was pronounced dead. Consumed with guilt, Samuel reportedly never recovered from this accident. Margaret's spirit is said to wander Ayer's Island to this day, searching for her father with his lunch still in her hand. To this day, many visitors have claimed to see a young girl walking near the abandoned buildings, and some say you could still hear the faint laughter echoing through the woods at night. Now the question is this Margaret still wandering the island where she spent most of her childhood, or is this wooden Lucy character that we were discussing earlier? Now, like all ghost stories and folklore, we don't entirely know if these stories are true or not. No contemporary records have ever been found to verify a John Tanner or Margaret Hawthorne, and Wooden Lucy appears only in modern retellings of the island's folklore. Yet despite the lack of evidence, these legends continue to cling to Ayer's Island, like the mills built upon this strange piece of land. Ghost sightings are still being reported to this day. In fact, here's one recent account from a sheriff deputy in the surrounding area. I live in a small town outside of Bangor, Maine. It's a quiet town with a university just near the border of it, actually. I lived by the river next to the abandoned mill on Ayer's Island. This mill is home to 35 deaths, if I remember correctly, including a foreman's daughter who was murdered by her father, accidentally. It was the winter of 2014. My friends Dan, Anton, and I were sitting in the back porch of Anton's house. Anton works with me at the police department as a sheriff deputy, and Dan recently just got a job as an EMT. It had been a long winter, and we were tired of sitting inside, so we decided to get some fresh air. Directly across the river from Anton's house is one of the abandoned ruins of the mill. You can see into the woods from the porch, so like anybody else bored in this town, we decided to crack open some beers and watch from the other side to see if anything happens. If you've never been to Maine, it's important to know that it gets dark at around 5 during the winter season. We have a lot of storms that come through, so this particular day, the sky was darkening at around 3:30 because of the cloud cover. By the time it was 4, the darkness swallowed the island, and we can no longer see the trees or the ruins. But what we heard haunts us forever. We were sitting on the porch, laughing and discussing how the week went, when all of a sudden, we heard a scream. It wasn't like a little kid playing type of scream. It was more like, "Help me, I'm dying" type of scream. At this time, I had just gotten off my shift, so I was still in my sheriff's uniform. I exchanged shocked expressions with Dan and Anton, and immediately ran inside and grabbed my pistol. I raced back outside and jumped down the stairs, and I sprinted across the frozen river to the island. Anton and Dan, back at the house, ran inside to grab the keys to Anton's cruiser. By the time they got in the cruiser and called for backup, I was already at the island at this time. I made sure to turn on my radio and keep in contact with them. With my pistol drawn, I climbed through the thick woods to the mill, and that's when I saw her. It was a little girl with a deep cut leading from her right temple to the bottom of her jawline. My first thought is, how the hell was she still breathing? With all due respect, and to put it lightly, no one should be alive with such an injury. I grabbed my phone and called it in.
"I got a young female in immediate need of medical care."
Around this time, Anton and Dan had just cut the chain at the gate to the island and raced over with the cruiser. When I met them at the nearby road, I led them to where I found the injured girl, only to find nothing. She was gone. We searched every inch of that island that night. The ruins, the trees nearby. We even looked in the river. There's no way she could have gone far. Emergency services arrived, and I have to say I was pretty embarrassed to admit that I called in a false alarm. To this day, my fellow deputies at the station still bring it up from time to time. But there was a girl there that night. Mark my words. I will never forget how that gash looked on her face. I've seen a lot in my line of work, and some of it sticks with you. Some of it, you do the best you can to forget. Since that night, I haven't been back to those abandoned ruins, and maybe that's for the best. The island is private property now, and no one is allowed in without clearance nowadays. But when the sun goes down and the town gets quiet, sometimes I'll find myself on my back porch, listening for that same shriek. My advice to anyone who finds himself traveling through Orono: if you find yourself near Ayer's Island, do yourself a favor and keep driving. It's better if we just let the past rest. Anyways, guys, that's going to conclude it for today's urban legend. If you have been to Orono or have any other stories about Ayer's Island, let me know in the comments what you know and your experiences. I'd love to hear what you've experienced, your personal accounts, and I will be replying to every comment. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button for more urban legends and local folklore. I honestly really enjoy researching these topics and making these kinds of videos, so your support means a lot more than you probably think. And remember, if you ever find yourself sailing down the Penobscot River near a small town a few miles north of Bangor, Maine, and you look off to your right and you happen to see a lady running through the woods near an abandoned mill site, just keep moving. Eyes forward and do not look into those woods, because it might just save your life one day. That's all for now. I'll be seeing you.